Welcome to Spine Chilling Chats podcast, where we like to spill the tea. If you're into the macabre and enjoy hearing about true crime, supernatural, or spooky experiences, pull up a chair, pour yourself a cup of tea, and get ready for some spine chilling chats with Manda and Ange.
Hi to all the spooks out there. I'm Ange.
And I'm Manda.
If this is your first time joining us, welcome, and we promise to be gentle with you.
Maybe.
If this isn't your first time, then I guess you know better than to believe that.
Exactly.
We have another awesome episode of Spine Chilling Chats for you today. This case does involve the murder of children, so please take that into consideration while listening.
Mm-hmm.
We're traveling all over the place today, starting in England, then heading over to Australia and South Africa before we go back to jolly old English to finish up the story.
Oh my.
So let's get to it.
Whew. I don't know if I'm ready for this one.
Yeah. Frederick Bailey Deeming was born July 30th, 1853 in Ashby de la Zouch, Leicestershire, England.
See, all those names again.
Yeah. The youngest of 7 children. His parents were Thomas Deeming and Anne Bailey Deeming. It is believed that both parents were extremely religious, as they all tend to be.
Right.
His mother actually was a Sunday school teacher, and both were very superstitious.
Are you superstitious?
No.
Yes and no. I am on certain things, but other things I'm like, really? Like, no.
I'm a see it to believe it kind of person.
Like, I like Friday the 13th. People don't like it. However, I have a doctor's appointment that was supposed to fall on Friday the 13th, and I asked him to change it to the 12th, just in case. Even though I like Friday the 13th, I don't want anything to go wrong on that day because it's a good day.
Oh.
And if I have a doctor's appointment, I'm getting a shot, I don't want it to fuck up.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm superstitious in certain ways.
Yeah, I'm not.
At all. Like, I love black cats, and I think it's a good sign when they cross your path. I don't think it's a bad sign.
I don't think it's any sort of sign. I just think it's a cat walking.
I think it's a good sign. And then my mom has one that she says that if you're sweeping, you shouldn't go over people's feet. It's bad luck. Like if you go over their foot. So I never try to do that, even though I don't believe it. Like, bad luck for what?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's weird.
They believed in the spirit world, omens, and psychic powers, which that kind of surprises me with them supposedly being extremely religious.
Omens omens I can see.
Yeah, but like psychic powers, that seems anti-Christian.
Yeah.
But I guess that's just my own stereotyping of Christians. His dad believed Frederick had the devil in him and would come to a bad end. The kids nicknamed him Mad Fred due to his abnormal behavior, but a lot of his odd behavior might have come from the savage beatings he received from his tinsmith father, who later died while labeled insane in a workhouse after attempting suicide on 4 different occasions by slashing his own throat.
So he was labeled insane and he beat his kids. That says a lot about how the kids are going to turn out.
Yeah.
But slashing your own throat is kind of crazy. Is that how he actually died? Does it say?
I don't think so, because it just says he attempted suicide. Okay. It didn't say specifically how he ended up dying.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe it will later. I don't remember.
Okay. I just watched a documentary about the social media murders, and one of them was about the girl from Utica, New York, and how she was a social media influencer, and she was friends with this guy or whatever, and then they were just friends, and though she met this other guy, and they wanted to date, so the first guy and this guy and her all went to this concert acting like everything was fine because they were just friends. Everybody's friends. And then afterward, he dropped the dude off at his house and then supposedly drove home, but he didn't. He took her out to this dead-end road and killed her.
Ah.
And she was in the trunk of the car, or she was outside on the ground. And he slit his own throat and actually died.
Wow.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Okay.
That's insane. I'd be like a little Nick and be like, oh my God, my
Yeah,
throat.
I couldn't do that. Frederick carried a Bible with him on all his travels and was obsessed with concepts of sin and punishment. Her death in 1875 came as a crashing blow, and he suffered a mental breakdown and later claimed her spirit compelled him to kill.
Her spirit.
Mm-hmm.
So now he's possessed
By his
mother.
mother, who was like severely Christian. Like,
Okay.
I'm sure she would be against murder.
Right. But here we go again, blaming it on the mother.
Yeah. His mother prophesies that he was born to be hanged.
Oh.
Yeah. Both of his parents died before the murders began. Not a whole lot is known about his childhood days. We do know that when he was 12, he was a plumber from Birkenhead's apprentice, and later on worked as a plumber in both Britain and Australia. Frederick, who I'm going to call him Freddy from this point forward, so I don't know if he went by Freddy, but that's what I like to call him. And it makes me think of...
And he has no say.
Yeah. And it makes me think of Freddy Got Fingered with Tom Green.
Oh my God. See?
And it makes me want to sing, Daddy, would you like some sausage? And it makes me happy and laugh. And we need a little humor
We
with
do
this
need a little
case.
humor in these podcasts.
Freddy stated at one time he had spent years in asylums, as both of his parents did too.
Oh, she did too?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And that he was epileptic from the age of 18. Now, his brother Albert denied these claims, though. As a teen, he found a dead woman, Min Cooper, with her throat slit, laying on the front doorstep of his house in England.
Who found her? Freddie or
Freddie
Albert?
found him.
Okay.
Found her. He became a suspect in her death, but ultimately was never charged with the murder, and it was never solved. They never found out who killed her. But 3 guesses.
Right?
That'd be my guess.
That would be my number one.
Freddie was unstable in youth, running away from home several times. He would go to sea as a deckhand on a fishing boat, engine room fitter, and steward on a passenger ship. He claimed to have gone on 20 to 30 voyages, jumping ship on most occasions. Freddie married Marie James in Lower Tranmere, England, in February of 1881. She was described as a typical Welsh lass. Lass. Whatever that means.
That means girl.
I know what lass means. I mean, what is a typical Welsh
Oh,
lass?
yeah. What is that? Is it like goody-goody? Prim and proper?
I don't know enough about Welsh to know what their
meanings are.
their stereotypes are.
Huh.
Yeah. They lived in Birkenhead for a while afterwards. He and his wife then moved to Australia in 1882, which even today is a really common thing, apparently. Tons of Brits move to Australia on work visas. I heard it's really easy for them to get a work visa over there.
Just them or anybody?
For Brits.
Really?
Yeah.
So I couldn't go and get one easily?
It'd be harder.
Oh.
It's just like...
Because nobody likes America.
All the Brits, they like... After they finish their school, they go spend a couple years over in Australia.
I mean, that's cool.
I learned that from my Red Handed podcast. I like
Shout
them too.
Okay.
Freddie worked in Sydney for John Danks, a Melbourne importer for plumbing and gas fittings. His employers in Melbourne thought of him as a wonderful worker and even gave him £200 credit to open a business in Rockhampton, Queensland. But the money was never repaid to his employer. Freddy also worked for a gas fitter in Sydney, but got charged for theft of brass fittings. He, of course, denied the charges, but the fittings were found at his home, and he was sentenced to 6 weeks in jail.
Oh, my gosh.
He even pretended to faint when the sentence was read. Insert eye roll here. And after he was released, he continued working in Sydney as a gas fitter up until December of 1887, when he was once again on trial, this time for fraudulent insolvency.
So his 6-week sentence, he fainted.
He fainted for a 6-week sentence.
Oh,
yeah.
my. Oh, my.
So I didn't know what fraudulent insolvency meant. So, of course, I consulted Google.
Mm-hmm.
I found that it is a crime that occurs when someone intentionally mishandles property to defraud creditors during a period of impending bankruptcy or insolvency.
Okay.
He then disappeared while he was out on bail.
Because, I mean, heaven forbid he go back to jail and faint again.
Yeah. So Freddy's other brother, Alfred, which I thought was kind of funny that they could have both gone by Fred. Alfred and Frederick.
Alfred and Frederick.
He married Marie's sister, Martha. So brothers married sisters.
That kind of stuff creeps me out.
I don't know. I don't think it's that weird.
I do, because then your niece and nephew are your brother. I don't know. It's too cross for me. Because, like, it would be like if you and I were sisters and I had a kid, that would be your niece or nephew.
Yeah.
But if my husband had a kid, that would be your niece and nephew. Or your husband had a kid, that'd be your niece or nephew. But they had them together. It's still niece and nephew, but it's weird.
I don't think it's weird.
Oh, my God.
My mom has 2 cousins that married 2 brothers. Like, they were sisters.
That's different, though. That's cousins.
But it's her cousins. So they were sisters.
Oh, they were sisters.
Yeah, they were sisters
that
and
married,
they married
brothers.
Yeah. I don't think it's weird.
Because, like, he's already your brother-in-law, and now he's your brother-in-law-in-law.
That's not how that works.
But you know what I mean. Like, he's already your brother-in-law. It's just weird that he's going to be your brother-in-law a different way, too.
Ah.
You know what I mean?
I don't think it's a big deal.
Okay.
You do you. It's okay. You can have your own opinions.
I don't know. Maybe I'm saying that wrong. Maybe I'm thinking wrong.
We don't have to agree on everything.
No, we don't.
It's okay.
It just creeps me out.
It's all right. By 1886, Freddy and Marie had 2 daughters, Bertha and Marie Jr. Do they put a junior after? She named her Marie, too.
Some people do.
They didn't put junior, but
maybe that's what they're...
It's confusing otherwise.
Right. So you just call her Marie Jr.
Or I could... MJ.
But yeah, there's women who name their kids Junior.
I think that's weird.
See? I don't think that's weird. I think
that's
it's cool.
That's something that guys do. They
Oh,
have
I don't know.
juniors. Women don't usually give...
Okay, what about the Loreleis?
That's weird.
You think so?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I think it's cool.
Okay. Bertha and MJ were born in Australia. Aboard a ship on their way to South Africa, Marie gave birth to their 3rd child, who was a boy, and they named him Sidney Francis.
Oh.
In January 1888, he was in Cape Town using the name Harry Lawson and was involved in many successful frauds and theft in Klerksdorp and Johannesburg. While in South Africa, Freddy cheated on Marie with sex workers and contracted syphilis.
Oh, surprise, surprise.
As we just learned in our Shiroishi case, syphilis is really horrible to get and can cause behavioral issues like psychosis, mania, depression, anxiety, and personality changes if it's left untreated.
Yep.
Well, back in Freddy's time, they didn't have that cure yet, which is just penicillin.
Right.
That's all it takes to cure it.
Which we found out that it can be cured
Yeah.
last in that episode as well.
So
And that it has sores like herpes.
yeah, we just went down a whole syphilis rabbit
hole. It was crazy.
So he lived with syphilis, which might have contributed to some of his craziness. In 1888, his brothers Alfred and Walter learned that Freddy and his family were returning to England with a considerable fortune. He returned to Birkenhead, England, at least once during that time. He was known to have been involved in conducting a Transvaal diamond mine swindle in 1889. He returned to England via the steamship Yumna. The captain and passengers remembered him because of his ostentatious display of jewelry and money and his gross unwanted attention to female passengers. He arrived in Hull by November of 1889 and stayed in a town close by called Beverley. He introduced himself as a retired sheep farmer named Harry Lawson from Mount House Farm, Rockhampton, Queensland, living on £1,500 a year to hide who he truly was. He worked his charms on Helen Matheson, who was the 21-year-old daughter of his landlady, and married her on February 18th, 1890. Now, you may have noticed that he is already married.
I was just going to say that.
About a month after the honeymoon in the south of England, he suddenly disappeared and took his expensive gifts to Helen with him. Freddy's first wife and extended family had heard of his bigamous marriage to Helen, according to the Scarlet Thread, Australia's Jack the Ripper, by Gervich and Ray. Freddy then visited Marie and his now 4 children in Birkenhead. He gave Marie several £100 and announced he was leaving for South America. So he's just leaving her
another wife
and go. Well, he already.
Oh, this was the first wife.
Yeah, this is Marie. So he's just leaving her and running off here and leaving her and running off there.
So he's got hoes in different area codes.
He said he would send for her and the children once he was settled.
Oh, okay.
But before leaving, he couldn't resist and conducted another swindle at a jeweler's in Hull. He was arrested for this on arrival at Montevideo, and was extradited back to England on a charge of obtaining goods by false pretenses. He was then sentenced to 9 months in prison. He just keeps doing these stupid thefts, getting caught, doing a little time, and then getting out to repeat the whole cycle over and over.
Hopefully he stopped fainting by then.
Hopefully. When he got out of prison in July of 1891, Freddy headed to the Liverpool area, staying at a hotel in the village of Rainhill, Merseyside, under the alias Albert Williams. A mysterious woman, that is believed to have been his wife Marie, who appeared at the hotel, was dismissed as just his sister, visiting before she left for Port Said. Freddy then took a lease on Dyneham Villa, a house in Rainhill, supposedly on behalf of a military friend of his, Colonel Brooks. However, Freddy moved into Dyneham Villa himself, while a woman and several children were seen at the house and were again dismissed as merely his sister and her children visiting, who had since returned home since they hadn't been seen. Shortly after this, Freddy complained that the drains at Dyneham Villa were defective and the kitchen floor needed to be replaced. He closely supervised the work on the floor while in Rainhill. Freddy began to then court Emily Lydia Mather, who was the daughter of a widowed local shopkeeper, Mrs. Dove Mather. Emily and Freddy, who was still going by the name Albert Williams, married on September 22nd, 1891.
So this is a third wife.
So this is the third wife.
While still married to the other two.
Yep.
Okay.
In November 1891, Freddy and Emily went to Australia in the German steamship Kaiser Wilhelm II. They arrived in Melbourne on December 15th, 1891. He rented a house on Andrew Street in Windsor, which is a suburb of Melbourne. On Christmas Eve of 1891, Alfred Spedding, the next-door neighbor, had heard banging of metal and assumed perhaps his neighbor was having plumbing issues and didn't think much of it. In reality, Freddy murdered Emily and was burying her under the hearthstone of one of the bedrooms, covering the body with cement.
Oh my, that turned quick.
Yeah. He had paid a month's rent in advance, giving the name Mr. Droon, but almost immediately left the property. The owner, who was a butcher named John Stamford, who lived nearby, had been happy to rent to the man because he seemed respectable, and at first had not even known the man's name.
Oh, yeah.
So he just went off of, oh, you seem like an all right guy.
You look okay.
Yeah. You look respectable. Here, I got a place you can stay at.
Jeez. I wish they'd do that now.
Yeah.
I'd dress up and be like...
Yeah. On March 3rd, 1892, a prospective tenant of the Windsor house noticed the rotten odor when she entered the home, but assumed perhaps a rodent of some sort of animal had died in the walls, or perhaps under the crawl space, or in the crawl space under the house.
Don't humans have a distinct smell versus animals?
I think death just smells like death.
But I always see them talking in the documentaries like, you know it's a human when you walk in.
I don't know. The only dead bodies I have smelled.
Oh God, here we go. This is creepy.
They've been treated. So I work in a medical building. I know I've told this before. I don't know if everyone's heard or if you're new. But I work in a medical building on Notre Dame, and they do autopsies there to teach medical students. And so they have cadavers that the students work on. So it's not all the time, but frequently you get the stench of a cadaver, but it's always like the formaldehyde smell.
Okay.
It's not like
decomposition.
No.
Okay.
But I've smelled lots of dead animals, so.
Oh, me too.
So I don't know.
But
I've never smelled
I've never smelled a human.
A decomposing human. No, me neither.
But I guess people know, like, it is a very distinct smell.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's good to know. So if you saw something that doesn't smell like an animal rotting, you need to
look a little deeper. They figured if it was an animal that died under the crawl or in the crawl space under the house, it could easily be taken care of. They soon realized it was a far larger problem when they went to the second-story bedroom and were hit with the unmistakable scent of death. Stanford also noticed that the fireplace bulged a little, pushing up the hearthstone.
Oh.
Mr. and Mrs. Droon hadn't mentioned doing any renovations of the property, and the fireplace bulging along with the horrid smell was a cause of concern for John Stamford. With a recession in the near future, he needed the extra income from the tenants, and he'd have a hard time renting it in the state. He called his estate agent to get his opinion. The owner and the estate agent raised the hearthstone to investigate where the smell was coming from, and it became so overpowering that they could hardly breathe. They each grabbed a side of the stone and lifted it. Underneath, they saw newly poured concrete that was uneven and cracking. Upon closer inspection, they noticed a foul liquid seeping out of those cracks.
Oh.
They quickly exited the home, and the police were called.
Yeah. Disgusting.
I can't even imagine
something's
oozing
seeping
out. The police slowly broke apart the concrete and saw long brown hair. They slowly unearthed the body to reveal Emily curled up in the fetal position in her nightdress, covered in blood. A post-mortem exam conducted on March 4th found that although her skull had been fractured by several blows, the most likely cause of death was that her throat had been cut. Publicity surrounding the gruesome finding of Emily's body was considerable. Within a few days, the Age newspaper had connected the murder to the Whitechapel murders of London. This is a quote from the newspaper. From the outset of a suspicion of insanity is almost suggested, and a tinge of the Whitechapel murders is hinted. The body hacked and mangled, the cool manner in which the cementing was carried out, the taking a house, etc., the laborious obliteration of all traces of the crime. All these things suggest the malevolence and craft which can scarcely accompany the sane murderer, no matter how callous and brutal. End quote. After the detectives left, Alfred Spedding, the next-door neighbor, walked over to the house. He wanted answers. He entered the house and examined the remnants of his neighbors' lives that were left behind. He couldn't understand how such a horrible thing could happen, especially so close to home. He also now knew that the sounds he heard on Christmas Eve were far darker than he had ever imagined.
Christmas Eve?
It was Christmas Eve. I know, people be ruining holidays up here.
Yeah, Jesus.
As he looked over the house, the kitchen fireplace caught his eyes. He poked around the ashes and found a half-burnt piece of paper. He found the partial correspondence that read, Mr. Albert Williams requests respectfully the pleasure of the company of at a social evening at Allen's Commercial Hotel, Rainhill, on Wednesday, August 10th, 1891. Williams was the man's name. If he had ever talked to his neighbors, he might have known that earlier. He carefully grabbed the important piece of evidence and took it down to the police station. From this and other clues found at the vacant Andrew Street house, and from information provided by local tradespeople, including the landlord butcher, Stanford and his agent, a local laundress, an ironmonger who sold Freddy the cement, and several carriers, investigating Victoria Police Sergeants William Considine and Henry Cossey were able to trace the recently arrived Mr. Williams to Kaiser Wilhelm II steamship. They were then able to interview other passengers who gave corroborating descriptions of Mr. Williams and Emily. While on the ship for weeks, Emily had talked to other passengers about her family at Rainhill, and the connection was now made. Freddy's behavior as Mr. Williams had also attracted considerable attention during the trip. Many passengers stated they detested Williams, but all agreed he had treated his wife in a loving and considerate manner. Police now also had a very good description of Mr. Williams, which they circulated to other Australian colonies, but at this stage, his real identity was still unknown.
So he treated his wife with respect and gentleness? What was it?
He treated his wife in a loving and considerate manner.
But he fucking murdered her.
Yep.
So make that make sense.
He wasn't tired of her yet?
Oh, man. Okay.
No, I don't know. I don't understand any of them.
I don't either.
I just find them interesting because
fascinating.
Because I don't understand it.
Right. It's like what I want to pick apart their brain.
Yeah.
What goes on in there? It's just fascinating.
Yes, it would be very.
I don't condone killing and serial killers.
No
like
way.
I don't praise them, but like I want to know about them.
I think it would be very interesting to get to have a conversation with them. Like, them locked up, though.
Like you personally?
Yes, I would think that'd be neat to get to talk to, like, just to...
They have a show like that.
Where you get to talk to a...
Well, people interview
Oh.
the killers.
Well, yeah, I know there's always people that interview. I would like to interview one.
No, it's called The Killer Speaks. And it's nothing but the killer telling its story. And that first episode of that one,
Wow.
dude was fucking insane. Had no remorse, no care in the world. Was just like, I fucking stabbed her 16 times. Because I thought she was going to tell on me. Like, it's crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah. But I see where you're coming from. I want to, too. I want to.
I think it'd be interesting to see if I would get the icks from them, too. Or if, like, they would fool me, too. Like they do so many of their victims. Like,
Yeah.
have I ever met a serial killer? Like,
Oh.
and I not know it?
Maybe.
Like, you don't know.
Maybe
Although
Kim-
I feel like serial killers are, like, not as common of a thing now. Like,
Because they're smarter. But not too long ago, I saw something about a possible serial killer.
oh, really?
I can't remember where or what, but there were bodies that were showing up, and they thought it might have been a serial killer. But I've
I
not
think
heard
it's
anything
so hard
since.
nowadays with all of the DNA evidence we have. Like, it's very hard in our linking, like, databases.
Oh yeah,
Where it's harder for them to continue
to
kill.
and not get caught.
Right.
Kill multiple people.
Mhm.
Like you can kill one person. Everybody can kill one person. You're gonna get caught though, so you can't kill
Most
multiple
likely.
people. Most likely. But you kill multiple people, you need to do it all the same day or all at once, the next
Yeah, 'cause
day after day after day, because you can't spread it out. You're gonna get caught before then.
Yeah.
I'm not giving any tips to people either, so don't think that I am.
At an inquest held on March 8th, it was discovered that a man that looked like Mr. Williams' description, a 5'7" man with a stocky build, fair hair, and a red mustache, had auctioned off a variety of household goods, possibly even wedding presents, in the city in early January of 1892. At this time, he was staying at the Cathedral Hotel in Swanston Street, Melbourne, registered as Mr. Duncan. It later was found that Freddy had also written an affectionate letter as Albert Williams to Emily's mother several days after Emily's murder. Freddy had found time to approach Holt's matrimonial agency as Duncan, wishing to meet a young lady with matrimonial intentions. So he, in this aspect, is a lot like Albert Fish, because he was contacting, matrimonial agencies to try to find a lady friend.
Yeah.
It just seems like that was a common thing
Back then.
But I guess we have like dating websites. I suppose
yeah.
it's similar.
People are serial daters,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. He had also found time to swindle a local Melbourne jeweler. In the meantime, I just wonder, how is he swindling them? What is he doing? How is he?
because he's charming.
Is he like, oh, can I look at that ring? And then he just pockets it?
Or he tries to talk him down, or talk him into like, let me take that home and see if my fiance is gonna like
Who'd
it.
be dumb enough to let him do that, though?
It's 18 something.
1892?
Yeah.
I don't know. In the meantime, around the 12th of January, 1892, Freddy traveled to Sydney and was now using the name Baron Swanston. I don't know how he keeps all of his
I was gonna
aliases
say,
straight.
isn't that
Because
fourth name now?
I have it written in front of me in black and white, and I can barely keep up with it. During the voyage and in Sydney, Freddy met and courted Kate Rounceville. He told Kate that if she agreed to become his wife, she would never regret it and would always congratulate herself on having entered into matrimony with him. Oh, barf.
That sounds very appealing.
After a whirlwind romance, during which Freddy gave Kate several items of what was later shown to be stolen Melbourne jewelry. So that's how he's stealing it.
So he's stealing. Yeah, he's stolen it. He's stealing it.
He's stealing it.
He's stealing it.
Kate agreed to marry Baron Swanston. Having also agreed to follow him to Western Australia, Kate and Freddy parted company. By forged testimonials, Freddy got a position at a mine at Southern Cross. On January 22nd, 1892, Baron Swanston departed for Fremantle. Again, Freddy, as Baron Swanston, made a name for himself on the ship, talking up his wealth and position in society. He made approaches to Miss Maud Beach, a young woman in the care of her uncle and aunt, Mr. and Mrs. Wakely. In this case, Freddy's charm came to nothing. Mr. Wakely told Swanston, "I may tell you plainly that I don't believe your stories, and I am not in the habit of allowing men of your class to enter my family circle." End quote.
Well then.
Oh, snap.
Right. Tell him, sister.
Oh, that was her uncle.
Oh, the uncle.
The uncle told him that.
Jesus. Tell him, dude.
Yeah. That's a good uncle.
Yeah. He could see through the bullshit.
Yeah. Once settled at Southern Cross, Freddy sent a shit ton of pleas to Kate, writing on February 8th, "Don't keep me waiting, dear. If you love me half as much as I love you, you would not keep me waiting a day." Again,
Yeah.
barf.
Disgusting.
Yeah, very disgusting. Police were closing in, however, and following telegrams by Victoria Police to Western Australia, Freddy was arrested at Southern Cross on March 12, 1892. He began by denying he was Freddy, but later said, "I think I know the party who has been murdered. I don't believe anyone would have the heart to murder a girl like that." They found in his possession, at the time of the arrest, a number of Emily's belongings, including her prayer book. At about the same time Freddy was being returned to Melbourne, news of the discovery of the Rainhill murders in England arrived in Australia. A family acquaintance of the Mather family, Edward Thunderbolt, what a cool name, Melbourne's Inspector of Public Nuisances, arranged a public subscription and erected a monument to Emily Mather at Melbourne General Cemetery. Following publicity surrounding the discovery of Emily's body at Windsor led investigations to Rainhill. On March 16, 1892, the authorities entered the Denham Villa. It was quiet there and covered in a layer of dust from being empty for many months. The team entered the kitchen and saw a newly poured concrete floor.
Oh, gosh.
They grabbed pickaxes and got to work chiseling away layer by layer of concrete. They worked for hours and unleashed the stench of death.
Ugh.
Several men had to step outside for fresh air. Knowing this would draw attention to their work, they took one last breath of fresh air and returned to the kitchen. They had chiseled several inches down in the concrete when they found the sickening remains of a child encased in concrete.
No.
Its body had decomposed, but the nightshirt it was wearing was still intact. The crew tirelessly continued digging, revealing the body of another child.
Ugh.
This child was older, around 9 years old, and decayed pretty badly. They could barely tell it was a girl.
Oh, that's terrible.
It is. This little girl had a thick rope tied around her neck. After this, the men had to take a break. They stepped back outside to be surrounded by a crowd of onlookers. They were too overwhelmed to stop some of the spectators from entering the house to see the grisly sight.
Who wouldn't want to see that?
People be gross. That's like when you drive by an accident.
Yeah.
Everybody tries to look.
And that causes more accidents.
Yep. One of the spectators was reporter Samuel Lau. He looked at the scene, then contacted his editor immediately to get the news out. The discovery made nationwide news. With more and more people gathering, the police got back to work. Moving the 2 children they uncovered up to the bedroom on the 2nd floor for examination later. Next, they uncovered the body of a grown woman who was wrapped in a quilt. It took 4 people to move her upstairs. After unwrapping the quilt, they looked at the body of Marie Deeming.
Which is his first wife, right?
His first wife. They returned to the hole they carved in the kitchen floor to discover the bodies of the last 2 children just after 3 o'clock in the morning.
So 4 children total.
4 children.
Were they were all his?
His children. In the end, it was revealed the decomposing bodies of Marie Deeming and the 4 children, Bertha, age 10, Marie, or MJ, 7, Sydney, his only son, 5, and I saw either Layla or Lila. I don't know which it was. I saw conflicting names there. Who was only 18 months old.
Oh, gosh.
Buried beneath the reconcreted floor in Denham Villa. Their bodies were laid upstairs to complete the family. They would get to spend one last night together before the examiner would come later that morning. He arrived promptly at first light and headed upstairs. He observed Marie had a slash across her throat that had severed her veins and windpipe. The throats of most had been cut. Bertha had been strangled. All of them had pillowcases placed over their heads. The murder and burials had apparently occurred while Freddy, as Albert Williams, was courting Emily on or about July 26, 1891. At an inquest held at Rainhill on March 18, 1892, Freddy's brother, Albert, identified Marie and gave some accounts of his activities. The Rainhill murders had gone undetected for 8 months. It appears Freddy's brother and Marie's sister had been led to believe that Marie and the children were in Brighton on a vacation and then assumed they were overseas again. Freddy made several visits to Birkenhead to reassure Martha that her sister and the children were well. Detection of the murders was also obstructed by Freddy's lease as Williams on the Denham Villa, which stipulated that the house should not be sold or relet for 6 months because of the imminent arrival of Colonel Brooks and or Williams' sister. The lease also allowed Williams to resurface the concrete floor.
He made sure that was in there, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
And I have a question. You called his brother Albert?
He's got 7 siblings, remember?
Oh, that's
so there's
right.
Albert, Alfred, and there was another one they mentioned.
Okay. I forgot about that.
Yeah. Furious demonstrations against Freddy were made on the journey to Perth and again on the way to Albany. He was tried at Melbourne Supreme Court on April 25th, 1892. The prosecution case was conducted by Robert Walsh, QC, Alfred Deakin, his counsel, later Prime Minister of Australia.
Fancy.
Yep. Tried to mount a plea of insanity. Luckily for his counsel, Freddy gave them plenty of ammunition for the plea with the strange behavior he exhibited while in prison. While locked up, the guards saw him talking to himself, and almost every night at 2 a.m., he'd stare at them alarmingly and ask if they could see her too. The guards would look around to see him just sitting in the dark, empty cell, and they asked him, who was he talking about? Freddy replied that his mother was in the room. She'd been following him for years and wanted him to do terrible things.
Blame it on the mom.
The defense also questioned the impact of newspaper reporting of Freddy on the jury. Perhaps wishing to aid the insanity plea, Freddy also claimed to have caught syphilis in South Africa and to have received visitations from his mother's spirit which urged his actions before the jury retired. Freddy made a lengthy, rambling speech of self-justification. He repeated the story he had told police that Emily had run off with another man. That is my one comfort, knowing that she is not dead.
Jesus.
That
is his one comfort. How about not killing fucking people?
That was
your kids?
His one comfort.
Nobody cares if you're comfortable.
No. He was found guilty as charged, however. He spent the last days writing his autobiography and poetry. The jury listened well to the yarn I had to tell, but they sent me straight to hell. That was part of his poetry.
I was going to say, what?
Mm-hmm. He also spent time talking to the Church of England ministers who he supposedly confessed to. The sentence of the court was confirmed by the Executive Council on May 9th, 1892, and the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council refused leave to appeal on May 19th, 1892. Freddy was hanged at 10:01 a.m. on May 23rd, 1892. He weighed 143 pounds, which was 14 pounds less than when he had entered the prison. So good. The autobiography, which Deeming wrote in jail, was destroyed.
Good.
Yep.
You don't deserve to have any kind of
No.
fucking recognition.
No. As Australians struggled to comprehend the savageness of the Windsor murder, significant press speculation grew, suggesting Freddy as Jack the Ripper.
Oh.
The speculation was also found in overseas reports of the case. For example, on March 17, 1892, the New York Times reported the story with the headlines, and I quote, "Perhaps Jack the Ripper, the startling discovery made in Liverpool, a man arrested in Australia," end quote. Freddy's movements at many stages of his career are obscure, and it appears he may have been in England in late 1888, the time of the Whitechapel murders. Creepmeyer's Melbourne waxworks of 1912 probably reflected widespread public opinion when it depicted a wax Freddy bearing Mathers, which was Emily, commenting that it was suspected he was identical with Jack the Ripper. Speculation that Freddy was Jack the Ripper continues today, and Robin Napper, a former Scotland Yard detective and forensic researcher, along with a team of researchers, came to the conclusion that most of the evidence leads to Freddy as Jack the Ripper.
But did Jack the Ripper bury his people?
No.
So then how can he be tied if Freddy buries them, but Jack the Ripper doesn't? Oh, I'm sure you have that covered, don't you?
Well, it's just my opinion at the end. This aired on a Discovery Channel documentary in 2011. According to Napper, the display of Freddy's death mask as that of Jack the Ripper in the Metropolitan Police Crime Museum in New Scotland Yard shows that the police had, in fact, always considered him a prime suspect. The reason that the police officially dismissed him as a suspect of the Whitechapel murders, according to Napper, is that they had believed he was either in jail at the time, according to some, or that he was in South Africa, according to others. The last podcast on the left lists Freddy as one of two reasonable Jack the Ripper suspects.
Okay.
The Crime Museum no longer accepts Freddy as the Ripper suspect, and its copy of his death mask is instead on display at the Metropolitan Police Museum in Sidcup. Another copy is on display at the Old Melbourne Gaol in Melbourne, where he was executed, whilst a third is in the collection of the State Library Victoria, alongside a cast of his right hand and photographs, books, newspaper articles, and letters relating to the case. I'm inclined to agree that he isn't Jack the Ripper, One, he only killed 6 people that were known of. 2 of them being his wife, like both of them his wife.
Yeah.
And the other 4 of his own children. Jack the Ripper went around murdering random sex workers.
Right.
So these people had meaning to him, significance to him. Whereas Jack the Ripper, it wasn't anybody.
It was just random.
Yeah, it was just random. Yes, they both typically slashed their victim's throat, but Jack went a step further and followed it with extensive abdominal and genital area mutilation, the removal of internal organs, the progressive facial mutilations as the distinctive features. That doesn't fit old Freddy Boy's MO at all.
Right.
I can't imagine he would keep such control with the murder of his family, people he's linked to, and then just go rabid with these strangers. Like, it doesn't make sense. So I say nay to him being Jack the Ripper.
I don't think so either.
No, he's just a sick fuck.
Yeah, they're all sick fucks.
Yes, they are. But that's the end of Frederick Deeming.
Okay.
Good old Freddy boy.
That's a good one. Fucking Freddy.
Fucking Freddy.
Hopefully he got fingered in jail.
Daddy, would you like some sausage? What a weird movie.
I know, right?
And I don't know the ages of people who listen to this.
Right.
But if they're anywhere under 30, they're not going to have any clue of that
what
reference.
we're talking about. No, not at all.
Like, these old people are weird.
They're like, what are they talking about? And then when they do watch the movie, they're going to be like,
this is dumb.
Yeah.
Which it was dumb, but
it was dumb.
It was good for its time.
But I mean, looking back at it now, it's dumb, but in a funny way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It was Tom Green.
Yeah, he's fucked up. And he's just weird.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, that's all I have for you today. If you would like to send us in your spooky stories, or if you have any suggestions on cases you'd like us to cover, you can send that to us at spinechillingchatspodcast@gmail.com.
We will omit your name if you don't want to be known. We can change it, or we can keep it in there. You let us know.
We also have a website, spine-chillingchatspodcast.com.
Yes.
And there you could also send us an email from there if you don't want to use your personal email. It also has links to our episodes. It's got a link to our merch store.
Yes, buy some merchandise.
I think they're pretty cute.
Yes.
We have killer mugs on there, so you can get a mug with a serial killer on it. And it's all ones that we have covered.
So far.
Yep. So take a look. Check it out. You can also read about us. We have our bios on there, and we got pictures on there, and just check us out. We're pretty cool.
Yeah, I think we're cool.
We're neato.
Yeah. We're the bee's knees.
We sure are.
The cat's meow. I don't know any other ones.
Me neither. Not off the top of my head.
Don't forget to check us out on Facebook and Instagram. And we're working on getting a TikTok. So...
And we're also trying to figure out maybe doing video ones, video podcasts instead of just audio. But it seems hard.
So you can see how awkward we are and weird.
And how many times I have to get up because my daughter is being loud or the dog wants out.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So we hope you keep listening, and we hope you keep it spooky. See you guys.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us on Spine Chilling Chats, your go-to podcast for all things murder, paranormal, and macabre. Keep sipping that spooky tea and diving into the darkness with us. If our tales have sent chills down your spine, don't forget to hit subscribe and share with your fellow lovers of the haunting and horrific. See you next time.